This is Raw Club Archives and RoRo. If you just want to introduce yourself, you have the floor.
Hello, I'm RoRo Morales, aka Rian Starr,
Mm,
formerly of the 1990s New York City Club Kids.
mm, And talk to us about, your background. Are you like a native New Yorker? Did you, go to New York after, finding out about the Club Kids? Tell us your story.
I am a born and raised New Yorker.
Mm,
I came from I'm born in Queens. I come from kind of a very abusive background. I came up I was born in the 70s, we'll just say that. I came up in
mm,
New York, my whole childhood. I would run away from school because I hated going to school all the time because I was
mm,
getting bullied and beaten up and teased. So I would hop
mm,
on the subway down to the village and start watching all the girls on the piers doing the ballroom and doing the voguing and everything. And I was infatuated. I just
mm,
couldn't get enough. I was seeing it live in front of me for the first time. I was very young. I was like about 14, I believe. And I was
mm.
going with my best friend, who's my best friend to this day, my girlfriend, Lainey. Shout out to Lainey girl. And she would cut out with me, and we'd go down there, and I would just be infatuated, enthralled with watching all the girls doing the ballroom voguing. So I got kind of in with the ballroom scene a little bit at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then I um, found out about House of Field, Patricia Field, who is now one of the costume designers for Sex and the City, or the costume designer for Sex and the City, rather. But at that time,
Mm,
she had a boutique in the village that was like hired trans people, gay people, weirdos, that sort of thing. Um,
mm,
I was frequenting going there. I kind of made friends with some of the people working there, and I was like, "Would you hire me? Like, I need to get a job." They didn't know how old I was, girl. I was like 15 maybe at this point, and they were
mm,
like, "Oh yeah, we'll hire you. Yeah, sure, absolutely." And so they hired me, and I ran away from home and started working at Pat Fields. And when I
mm,
started working at Pat Fields, they told me about this hotel that I could live in that was kind of for runaways and weirdos, and a lot of them lived there. And that was Hotel 17, which was
Wow.
on 17th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. It is still there today. Amanda
Mm,
Lepore still lives there today. So I got a room at the hotel and started just making friends at the hotel, making friends at Pat Fields, and all those friends happened to be club kids. So I
mm,
started out more in the rave scene, the ballroom scene. I went from ballroom to kind of raving all over New York, and then kind of inserted myself into the club scene once I got to Pat Fields and Hotel 17. Found out all about that and just started working in clubs. And I was about 16, 17 years old at this point.
wow. Okay. And your background, you're Latino, correct? You're
I am a
Boricua?
Latino, yes.
You're
I am
Boricua?
Boricua,
Okay, I
correct.
love it. Are you from Ridgewood?
Correct. I am from South Jamaica, Queens,
Are you
Hillside, and
from?
214. Yeah, I ran away from home. I think it was 91 or 92 around
Mm,
that time. And it was all about Manhattan back then. There was no Brooklyn, there was no Queens, nothing, there was no scenes there. It was all about
yeah.
Manhattan. So my dream, just like a lot of other people's, was to um, I was from the projects, so I
Mm,
grew up in the Hillside projects on Hillside Avenue in Manhattan, in Queens rather, and so
mm,
it was my dream, just like everybody else's, to get to Manhattan and to get the fuck out of the projects. Excuse my language. And
mm,
so I grew up very poor and very outcast. I was the only gay person that I knew of in my whole vicinity, and
mm,
especially being of Latin heritage. My father was a very like staunch Latin man, and so I didn't have a
mm,
lot of support surrounding that in my youth. And so to me, it was just to make it into Manhattan somehow, one way or
mm,
another. And so for me, that was to leave Queens. Like my friend came 1 o'clock in the morning, and I threw my boxes out the window to him, and he threw them in his car, and I jumped in his car, and we drove off into the city, and I never looked back.
Wow. And this is after you had already, started making connections in the city and had friends, in ballroom and
Correct.
stuff like that.
Right. Because when I started in ballroom, I was seeing all
Mm-hmm.
the voguing girls, and I was like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that, but that was just not my wheelhouse. Maybe I was like not coordinated enough. Not, it's a thing, girl. It's a thing. So I don't know. I was just like, I loved it. I loved the scene. I loved the culture. And I loved going to ballroom and being at the events. And that's where I sort of started seeing House of Field, which had kind of more weirdos in it than just like the typical
Mm.
ballroom. The ballroom goes to the brown people, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the House of Field and Pat Fields, they were doing something a little different. They kind of involved everybody. And it felt a
Mm.
little bit more welcoming than some of the other houses because girls could be catty, you know.
Mm.
And so I never really got into doing the ballroom myself, but I did attend events. I did kiki with the girls and make friends with the girls. And then that's kind of
Mm.
was my jumping off point of getting into the queer scene. But when I
Mm.
um and then like I said, I kind of morphed into doing the rave thing because the raves were everywhere at that time.
Mm.
And I was kind of like doing that all the time, going out partying, promoting all up and down the East Coast, everywhere from Baltimore to Jersey to Virginia,
Wow.
anywhere that we can get to in a car. We had a little crew of us. We'd go every day practically to another location to go raving or go raving for a few days here, a few days there. And then like as I kept making connections, a lot of the rave scene kind of blended and kind of morphed into the nighttime club scene. A lot of people were kind of seen in both areas. So when I was going to the clubs, I
Mm.
was seeing a lot of people I already knew from the rave culture. And so I kind of just then morphed into the club scenario after that.
I understand. And so like give us like kind of like a play by play of how the rave scene was compared to the club scene. Was like the rave scene more like a psychedelic, almost like a new age type of hippie vibe, would you say? Like for the 90s?
No, I mean, there was a little bit of that because the 90s
Mm-hmm.
did pick up a lot of like fashion and culture from the 70s. We were stealing a lot of the 70s. I had tons
Mm-hmm.
of bell-bottom pants and like, like psychedelic kind of outfits and stuff. But it was also looking a lot to the future. There was also a lot of like,
Mm.
like motocross and motorcycle like fashion and
Mm.
futuristic fashion and stuff like that. And it was really the rave to me, at least for myself, was mostly about the music and the dancing. I love to dance. I love the techno music was just coming into like being in the main, not even the mainstream, but being out there where you can kind of reach out and grab it and listen to it. And
Mm.
it was a way for me to escape and not be at home. And
Mm.
and then the club scene was more kind of we just did whatever. We did everything ourselves. We all made our own outfits and costumes and looks, and we all just like again. I pulled a lot of my looks like futuristic-y. Like I like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and like the cartoony Speed Racer, like that kind of stuff. And so that would be like where I pulled my inspiration from, for
So
sure.
so what I'm getting is like it was already a scene of people going to raves, going to clubs that was kind of like loosely organized, that wasn't specifically just the club kids, which was, Michael Alig's thing.
Right.
Like it was like already people doing this like outside of that kind of is what
Correct.
I'm
There
getting.
was people in the raves that were like I would see Astro Earl all the time, who became
Mm-hmm.
a good friend of mine. I would see him at the raves. I would see him at the club. So,
Mm.
like I said, I started in the raves, making my contacts there. I started promoting parties. I was doing that kind of thing. Hold on, I'm going to take a sip of water. And then through promoting and just constantly going to raves all the time is when I started to see people that I would also see when I would like start to venture out into the clubs. Being that I was from New York, I knew about, which clubs were which and what was going on. And it was all about the Limelight and Webster Hall back then. And now let's
Mm,
not say that Michael Alig is the leader of the club kids, because I'm going to preface this by saying this. I am in no
please.
way affiliated nor a friend of Michael Alig's, in no way whatsoever. Okay.
Mm,
Michael Alig was one person within the community of club kids. Albeit
mm,
he was a leader, he was not the leader. Okay.
mm,
There was no like one person who was a leader, just as in any other group of people, you have all different sects of people, right? So there was Michael Alec and his little crew. There was Rain Voltaire and his little crew at Webster Hall. Michael Alec was exclusively at Limelight. Limelight,
mm,
Tunnel, and Club USA, because that was Stephen Lewis and owned by Stephen Lewis and Peter Gation, and so he was very much affiliated with them. Nobody else really would hire him. He was a mess. He was a mess, and he was a very unkind, nasty person. I didn't associate with him very much. I worked with him. I was a cage
mm.
dancer at the Limelight, and I promoted parties at the Limelight. Therefore, I worked with him. We had overlapping gigs, but in no
I
way did I hang
understand.
out with him or anything outside of the club scene. I didn't get along with him. We were on opposite friend groups, and so, like I said, it was like I'd see him at parties, I'd see him at gigs, I'd say hello, but we really didn't have like a friendship. So
Wow.
I want to explicitly say that because I don't want anyone to think that I have any kind of like I owe anything to Michael Alley, because I absolutely do not. I put myself out there. I put myself on the line at 16 years old, and I made it out there on my own, and I did it on my own. And he was just another person within the friend group. Now, within saying that, I do know, you know, all of what has happened in the past with Angel Melendez and him killing him, the murder, so on and so forth. Because, even though he wasn't my friend, we were in the same group, and everybody talked, everybody knew each other, everybody at least had like a hello, goodbye type of relationship, you know, but
Most definitely.
nothing more than
And
that.
and I remember because I was watching your TikTok video, and I watched it several times because you really are a great storyteller. And, it really put me in that in that space of where you were when you were trying to figure out what was going on at that time. And you
Yeah, I
knew.
didn't do my part two yet,
But it's like, at that time, you know, basically what was going through like your mind? Did you suspect that he had done something? Because you mentioned that people were saying, oh, he's, joking about, how he murdered Angel, da da da. Like,
yeah.
did you actually think that it
So,
was true at that point in time, like when you was hearing that stuff before,
okay.
they
Well,
found his body and stuff?
this happened like, after a few years of us all, doing the club kid thing and being in the club kid scene.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, all my interactions with Michael Allen were strictly mostly through parties and stuff. But all of that overlapped, right? And so I would see
Mm-hmm.
him all the time and work with him quite often. And we were all unhinged. I will say that. There was an
Mm.
epidemic was going around New York. Um, Special K, cocaine, ecstasy was brand new, acid, all of these things were on the scene, right? So a lot of people were struggling with addiction, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were struggling with drug use, alcoholism, all of those things. So that plays a very big part in what happened. Okay.
Mm.
Angel Melendez was basically the drug dealer of most of the club kids, at least for cocaine. He mostly sold cocaine, as far as I remember, because that's what I would mostly buy from him and a few other
Mm.
people. But he was one of a few, but he mostly and he was at all the parties, everybody knew him. And I think that was kind of his way of, inserting himself into the parties was through the drug dealing. He
Mm-hmm.
also comes from ballroom, so I knew him prior to the club kid thing. Um, Seeing him at the ballroom events, he was not in a house, but he would come to events and things like that. I think
Wow.
he was from Jersey, so he a lot of Jersey girls do the ballroom thing, so he would always come in from Jersey. So I knew him a little bit prior to him being like our drug dealer and all that. So
Mm.
um, w- there was like a day when I realized after like a bunch of parties, Angel was always there. He was always somewhere. You could always find him on whatever given night at one of the clubs, right? After about a week or maybe even a little bit longer than that, I just didn't see him for a while. And I was like wondering, like, where is Angel? What's going on? I haven't seen him, but I didn't suspect anything like right off the bat because, again, he's a drug dealer. We're all doing crazy shit. So, I wasn't like keeping
Mm-hmm.
tabs on anybody or where anybody was. But I remember
Yeah.
this one particular night I was working the VIP ropes at Webster Hall, which is kind of the entrance to their stage, was like the
Mm-hmm.
VIP area. And
Mm.
I kept hearing people talking like behind me about Angel, and I saw Tobel. Tobel is a drag queen from back then. I think she's still around today. Tobel Don Cartier. She was his roommate, as well as Sophia Lamar.
Mm.
And I saw Tobel and I said, "Did you see Angel? Because I wanted to buy some Coke." I'm being like real here. So she's like, no, I think he's out of town. And when she said it, I like saw this like kind of look on her face. Now I'm not gonna purport
Mm.
to know what anybody knew or anybody didn't know because I'm not in their head. But it seemed something seemed off about that. Like the way, like, you catch a look from somebody, especially being a New Yorker, you got to make these like split that second decisions on people like based upon facial expressions, body language. Something wasn't right. The way she looked at me, and she's like, "Oh no, he's out of town." And I was like, "Okay, could be feasible. He's from Jersey. He could be back in Jersey, seeing family." Although didn't seem like the thing. And then, Michael Alec was running around the clubs. Like there was like then people started kind of making like a joke, like, "Oh, Angel's just dead. Angel's probably dead." Like in a joking kind of way, not really being
Mm-hmm.
serious. And then Michael Alec was running around the club. He's like, "I killed Angel. I killed Angel Melendez. Ha 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 ha." And everybody just thought it was kind of like part of the joke because he was that
Mm.
twisted. He was
That's
that
it.
twisted. He
Yeah.
did all kinds of like parties that involved blood. He had a party at Disco 2000 at Limelight he called Bloodbath. Like he had these like just kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of part of the scenario back then. Like a lot of people did bruises as makeup, and it was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
weird thing. And so
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, he's just like making these weird jokes about like, oh yeah, I killed Angel. He was literally like laughing about it, running around, parties and saying it. And again, he's deranged. He's very hardcore drug user at this point, and so I
Mm.
didn't know what to believe. But then, as the time still progressed, after like a week and a half and not seeing Angel, I started to become really suspicious. And I was like, something is not right here. So there was this moment where I had to go and pick up money from the limelight because I was owed money for my go-go dancing and I got paid in cash.
Mm.
And there would always be an envelope waiting there for me. So I said to myself one day, I'm going to go to Michael Alig's apartment because Michael Alig lived in this high rise. We all had been there for parties or whatever. We all knew where he lived. Peter Gation was renting it for him, paying the rent. I said, I'm going to go to
Wow.
Michael Alig's apartment and see if I can like, if he'll say anything. I mean, I really don't know him very well, but I'm going to do it in like the vein of like, I'm coming to get my cash. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so I showed up at his apartment and the doorman lets me in. I go upstairs. He opens the door and just this horrendous. horrendous smell hit me like directly in the face. Now, if you've never smelled a dead body smell is something that I'm getting like chills right now. It's like something you will never forget. It's like something you'll absolutely never forget, this smell. And when he opened the door, he was like, looked like he had been up doing drugs for days. I don't know how long it had been since I seen him, but then in that moment, then in that moment is when I knew. That's absolutely when I knew. And I said, he handed me my cash in my envelope, and I hightailed it the fuck out of there because I didn't know what to do. I was like 19 years old at this point, and like, like a young kid. Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Do I call the cop? Do I even know that this is real? Because could I just be putting this in my head that I'm like, but I'm picking up this scent that you just can't deny. You know what I mean? You just can't deny it. And it smelled like not just like dead body, but like bleach as well, like cleanup kind of like material, like bleach and stuff like that. I suspect because he had kept Angel's body in the bathtub that I had been to the apartment when the body was still in the bathtub before they brought it and dumped it in the river before him and Freeze dumped Angel in the river because the scent was just so it wasn't like a background scent. Like I said, it hit me in the face when the door opened. That's how much I knew like what had happened. And then the body washed up on the shore. I believe it was Staten Island. A couple of days after that, and when they found the body, though, they didn't have an ID on the body because it had been dismembered, and so no, they didn't say this is who the body is. And so I didn't have a TV back then. I didn't watch the news. I didn't know that a body had been found. And then it started to be reported in the paper, in the Daily News, in the Post. A body's been found, washed up and dismembered in boxes and so on and so forth. And then the name came out, and then I was like, okay, he did it. He did it. He killed him. Two and two started to equal four, right? So
Mm,
Angel's missing. Body washes up. They ID the body. Angel, Michael's running around, saying he killed Angel. So then now it's all making sense. And the funny part is I would have never suspected Freeze because Freeze was kind of a
mm,
very background character. Robert Riggs is the accomplice in this.
yeah.
Freeze was a background character, but Freeze was like a puppy dog to Michael Alig. He basically followed him around, was his little pet, like always seen with Michael, like, but wasn't like, again, another person that I just only kind of had work, if you can call it work interactions with, because he was not in my friend group really. He was just kind of
I
another club
see.
kid that I dealt with. But so I didn't have, but he was always very quiet to me and
Mm,
very kind of reserved, right?
mm-hmm.
And so he was kind of the person that I really was very surprised at because he wasn't running around like Michael was, like, like just spouting this off everywhere that he had killed Angel. So I was very surprised at that. And then you see, I don't know if you know the whole progression of Michael doing jail and then leaving jail. When Michael came out of
Yeah.
jail, he was exactly the same person doing exactly the
Yup.
same bullshit. But you
Yeah.
notice Robert Riggs did not. Robert Riggs
He
faded to
became a
the background.
professor. Yeah.
Right.
I
He
saw
he
that.
changed who he was and he changed his life because he actually repented and cared about what he did. You know,
Mm,
I don't think Michael Alec ever gave a shit. Michael Alec was happy that his name was now finally infamous,
mm.
right? That's what he wanted the whole time. He wanted to be infamous. He wanted to not just be famous, not just be a superstar, be infamous. And
I see.
and look, he achieved that, right? And he achieved that with murder and by murdering somebody. And I do want to say this too. Angel was one of the sweetest, kindest people that I knew. Yes, he was a drug dealer, right? That has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with the character of a person he was, right?
Mm,
We all had to do what we had to do back then to survive and get by. I did a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have done to survive and get by and make it as a young, queer, Latino person in New York City in the 90s. So
mm.
He was extremely kind, extremely sweet, very soft spoken, very gentle person. Michael Alig's scenario of Angel threatening him for drug money that was owed, I do not see that as being a thing. Now, again, I wasn't there, so
Mm.
I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like in his character.
So you think it's something more sinister than that?
I think that they probably lured Angel over there with the intent of buying drugs off Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And when Angel either refused to sell him drugs because he owed him money or he showed up with the drugs, they decided they were going to just take the drugs. And
Ah,
within doing that, and within doing so of taking the drugs,
the
killed
argument ensued,
Angel.
and then wow.
Exactly. That would be, if I had to make an educated guess based on my experience with these people and what I know, that would be my guess on what happened. Because Angel is not the type to like threaten you and be like, yo, you owe me money, pay up or I'm gonna fuck you up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he had been dealing drugs to us for years. So if you owed him money, he's gonna get it from you somehow. He's gonna see you somewhere at some point and get
Yeah.
it from you. And he wasn't a violent person. He wasn't even like a big time drug dealer like that. Like he's gonna like
Mm-hmm.
come and threaten you or your family or something for some money that was owed. It couldn't have been more than possibly a few $100s, probably, you know.
Mm.
But again, I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but I'm making educated guesses and decisions here based on my experience with these people. So that was a very awful point in the Club Kid history, and I don't want to make this whole thing about just that because
Of
there's
course
so
not.
much
Yeah.
more that we should be known for
Mm-hmm.
than just that murder, and unfortunately, that has eclipsed what we
Mm.
have done and contributed to this society because there has not been anyone who has done what we've done. And
No.
there was that person who commented like, "Oh well, the factory did it first." Well,
No, they
not really,
didn't,
sort
but
of.
they didn't do it the way, and I'm so glad that you said that because what you said about it being a big movement and being something that was, the first of its kind is so true. Because as I was saying in that post that you commented on, y'all were really the first influencers. Y'all were really the first people to, promote parties in such a way that had people captivated. And it was like, you know, almost like foreshadowing of what social media would be for promotion and parties and influencing and all that type of stuff. Like, where would you say that came from? And why do you think, you know, this is going to probably be my last question about Michael Orlick, but why do you think that he gets like that leadership or de facto leadership type of role when people think about the club kids instead of people seeing it like how you just mentioned it to me as a movement, like it
Right?
was a movement without him,
Yeah,
like he was just
it was.
up
Yes, absolutely.
in the
Everything was
midst of it.
DIY back then.
Mm,
Right. Everything was DIY back then.
mm.
Now, you know, we had to do everything ourselves. We would make our own flyers. We'd go to the Kinkos and print up hundreds of flyers. We would canvass the streets, passing out flyers to people that we thought would be cute coming to our parties. Everything was curated. Everything we
Mm,
curated ourselves. So if I was hanging out at West 4th Street Station, I saw you coming out of the train station and you look like someone I wanted to be at my party, I gave you a flyer. I gave you a guest list spot. I gave you a get in free card. I gave you a VIP card, and that would lure the people that I want to start to bring into the parties that we're throwing. Right.
mm,
So there was a lot of effort on our part of curating these parties. And then you would walk out onto the main floor of Limelight or Webster Hall or the Tunnel or Club USA, and you would just your mouth would drop because there was thousands of people on this dance floor that you, as a group or doing this party, pulled in and and got to come on a
mm,
Wednesday night. I remember Disco 2000 was on a Wednesday night. A Wednesday night, we got thousands of people to come out on a Wednesday night to party at Limelight, which is crazy. It's not a Friday, it's not a Saturday, right? But I don't know, everything was DIY. And like I said, we were all scrappy and trying to make, I didn't know I was part of anything really. You know, I
Mm,
had no idea I was doing anything that was even going to be anything. I just love to dress up. I love to do looks. I love to, have attention on me, I guess. And so I was just doing what came quite naturally to me as a young person. And I saw all these other people that were doing it and I was emulating them. And then once I got accepted into the group, then I was like one of the influencers, I guess,
wow.
And I just, yeah, it does have a very big correlation, that um, using, innate talents that we have, where mine was, I eventually went into fashion because I was making clothes and I put myself through FIT, and one of the top fashion schools, and I was making clothes for people, I made a lot of garments for Amanda Lepore in her early days. She was my next door neighbor at Hotel 17. Shout out to Mandy. I love you, girl.
Shout out, man,
And
Lepore.
oh yes, still a very good friend of mine. And
That's
we were
amazing.
just all trying to do our own thing, and that's why I feel like Michael Alec getting credit for this. What I will say is like the only correlation I could put between like Andy Warhol and the Club Kids was that like Michael Alec was the Andy Warhol, right? He had
Mm,
no real talent on his own, but what he knew how to do, right? What he knew how to do was to surround himself with people
mm,
who did know what they were doing and did know how to throw. I mean, if you look at Michael Alig's looks, it's really not that great, like
nah.
compared to what a lot of other people were doing, I mean,
Yeah.
so, but he knew how to gather people together,
Hmm.
how to curate people as we were already doing ourselves on the streets of New York, and how to get them to be in one place at one time. That I will never say that Michael Alec was a stupid person. He was a very
Mm,
smart person, right? Because he could. That takes some smarts and some finagling, as they say, and to get people into this one space, especially because there is a good like I'd say about 50 of us that were, of the core of this, right? And so he knew how to like, just like Andy Warhol, pick and choose people to put around him that had the
mm,
talent, that had the looks, that had the excitement, that had the ideas. And then he
mm.
just would somehow find the funding. He was able to get the funding from Peter Gates to do these outlandish parties where we were trucking in club. I remember I met a bunch of friends because we trucked in all these people from Texas that were club kids in Austin that we
What?
paid to come and live in to come for a few nights and party in New York. Yeah, and then they
Wow.
ended up staying a lot of them. So, uh,
Wow.
yeah, he was able to like just kind of reach out and grab people and bring them in. He had a personality, right? And so his personality came through and his ability to coordinate came through. But he wasn't the greatest at anything else. Like he was a terribly with substances. And like I said, we all were back then, but I mean to the very, very extreme with that. And sometimes mental illness and drug addiction can equal genius. And I hate to say it, but it's the truth, right? A lot of times art and music and all of that comes from that sort of thing because
Mm,
drugs allow your creativity to kind of expand and think of things that you might not think of when you're sober. And then when you have backing like Peter Gations behind you, Stephen Lewis, and whoever else owns the clubs, Rainbow Tear,
mhm.
it's easy to bring people in. Then if you could pay them and you could say, "Hey, I'm going to give you some money if you show up at this party. I'll pay for your plane ticket in from Austin to come be a featured guest at our party." That will bring those people in, right? So I think that's why he really becomes like the de facto leader of this because
Mm,
he got a lot of like his name was on every flyer of every party that he did. He made sure of
mm,
that. Like I
mm,
said, he wanted to be famous. He wanted to be something. So he was absolutely positive to put his name on every flyer, every party. You knew it was Michael Allen. if he threw it because he made sure that you knew it. So his name will always come up. And like I said, the murder just eclipsed everything and then kind of shut down the club scene in that time period. Once Giuliani found out where, all about this, that was the beginning of the end.
Mm. And you said that like things in your video that you made on TikTok, like things were kind of waning already. Like, do you think that had to
Yeah,
do with
because
all the drugs?
Giuliani had become mayor. And before him was Dinkins, and Dinkins was a great mayor. He didn't like Deakins was like the first black mayor, a black
Hmm.
man, having a very strong leadership role in New York, and so his platform was not based upon stopping and frisking brown people, busting small time drug dealers. Giuliani was a prosecutor in New York, and he came from that, and so he came from the idea we're going to prosecute everything. We're going to prosecute whatever we can, small time, big time, it doesn't matter. So stop and frisk became a thing, and all of this like barging into nightclubs to arrest people became a thing. Then he started a no dancing thing, like law at one point that you had to have a special cabaret license, which cost thousands of dollars to get to have dancing in your establishment, and it became like really tight regulation. So it was already
Mm.
starting to wane. And then the thing with Peter Gatien not paying taxes had already started to come out
Mm.
into the wash. And so it was already like starting, like you could see like the club nights were a bit more stressful and a bit less people. So that was already starting to happen. And I think there might have been a level of desperation in what Michael Alig did,
Mm.
obviously, to hurt somebody is in any way is a level of desperation, right? So I'm sure um, that was not helpful because his empire was crumbling around him. What little empire he had built was just already coming down, and so this was kind of the last straw when Angel was killed, and it was put together that it was Michael and Freeze, and um, then Giuliani really hardcore started coming into the clubs and really hardcore started to raid us like every other day, every like multiple
Wow.
times a week, where like police, FBI, SWAT teams, all kinds of
What?
things, and people coming into the club, shutting the clubs down, stopping us from doing stuff. I mean, it was just crazy. Before that, we used to do things like outlaw parties where we would just show up. We showed up at a McDonald's in the middle of a 24-hour McDonald's at like
So
3 in the morning and
that's
just
what an outlaw
big
party
party.
was. So that video I posted about the outlaw party, that was literally y'all just going to random places and just
Yeah.
posted up and just having a good ass time.
Yeah, we would just get like as many people as we could to show up somewhere. So instead
Hmm.
of at the club, we tell them, we'll show up at a McDonald's at like 3 in the morning. We did it on a subway once at like 1 in the morning, and we just filled up the subway car. We did it at the post office on the last night that you could file your taxes. So there's like throngs of people there. We did it at Rockefeller Center during Christmas time on the ice skating rink when there were people ice skating, and we would just
Mm.
show up like 50, 60, 70, even more sometimes. And
Wow.
we'd have, you know, drugs and drinks in our bags, and we would party, and we'd
Mm.
have a DJ show up and they play music, and you know,
Mm. That sounds
it
amazing,
was
honestly.
it was really crazy. And everybody would turn out and we'd be in looks, and it was just like being in the club. It's just in some random place. And we couldn't do it anymore because we were getting raided. People were finding out, about it. Our way of letting people know about it would be like passing flyers. And obviously,
Mhm.
you can't always, know who you're giving a flyer to or where that flyer is going to end up or go. And
I
so they would
see.
find out about it like through the flyers or whatever. And the police would be there when we get there sometimes. And we're like, fuck, are we going to do this? And sometimes we'd still do it.
Mm.
They can't arrest all of us, right? And sometimes we wouldn't just because it would just be a little bit too risky. So yeah, that's where the outlaw parties kind of came into play, was to kind of like do things outside of the clubs. because clubs were getting raided, because clubs were having a lot of issues with Giuliani, trying to shut everything down. He didn't try, he did. He was very successful.
What happened? Like after, like when did like what did it evolve into? Because I remember you saying heroin chic became a thing, and that was like its whole era, like post, I feel like rave scene post that like, key moment that was going on in the 90s. Like I remember
Yeah.
like just watching documentaries and stuff like that, like you see a visual shift, like from the aesthetic, the music videos, the way that things look on camera, everything, the way that music sounds is a aesthetic shift from like the early 90s into the, mid to late 90s. Even with like ads and stuff like that. Do you think, all that had to do with like club culture completely just going away? And what did it evolve into? Like after, unfortunately, Angel's murder and Giuliani coming into power.
Well, I think, I think number one issue was drugs. It was
Mm.
the heroin epidemic it was very, very big in the 90s. You could walk down any street in the Lower East Side or the South Bronx in the 90s, and there was throngs of drug dealers,
And
like
this is
throngs of them.
before meth became a thing, right?
Yeah, there was no meth really in New York. You could get meth maybe if you went to a rave at an after party, maybe because
Mm-hmm.
you had to dance for another 8 hours at the after party. So you might do a
Yeah.
little pick me up. But meth was
Mm-hmm.
never really a thing at this point. Like I said, a lot of coke, ecstasy, acid,
Mm.
but then heroin came into play. And
Mm.
heroin, I really feel like was a big downfall. A lot of people got addicted. I became addicted for almost 20 years. Other people
Wow.
I know became addicted for longer than that. Friends of mine, I'm not going to say their names because I don't know if they want me to, but also became addicted, and it really, uh, heroin is a terrible, terrible, terrible drug. Probably
Mm.
the number one out there, I think, because you get not just a mental addiction, but you get a physical addiction, right? And so at
Mm.
some point, you got to start doing anything that you can to support your habit. And getting clean is a bitch. That's why I was on it. I was in and out of it for 20 years because I couldn't get clean. I kept relapsing. I kept relapsing. Kept relapsing. It is an extremely difficult drug to get off of, and it started to come in little ways. Like in raves, you can get ecstasy that was either A, cut with meth because you wanted to
Mm.
stay up and dance, or B, cut with heroin because you wanted to kind of lounge and chill. And it wasn't a lot. It was like, just a little taste, as they would say, right?
Mm.
And so we always kind of, my little group would prefer after we do a little bit of the one with meth, we get one with a little bit of the heroin because we want it to come down. We didn't want to have a hard come down from the meth, right? And it started to inch its way in like ways like that, like these little kind of that you innocently think, oh well, that's not gonna really do anything to me because I'm just gonna take a little taste here and there, and then those tastes become not just here and there, but every day, and then those every day becomes all the time.
Mm.
All the time becomes every time that you're awake, right? And so I think addiction and heroin, I mean, so many people died at the Hotel 17 that I know of. While I was there for about 5, going on 6 years that I lived there. A lot of people died. People died beyond Angel in the club scene, from drugs, drug overdoses. And so I think that, in a strange way, I feel like Giuliani was trying to do something good in his brain because it was a really big epidemic. Like there was just the whole Lower East Side was a drug zone. Like there was not
Mm.
white people who were living there in nice condos, right? It was just really shitty apartments and a lot of blown out buildings. People were squatting in. It was not a nice place to go to. And
Mm.
so that wasn't the only part of the city. South Bronx was also like that, very dangerous and scary. And so I think in Giuliani's mind, he wanted to like, make the city come back. The 80s was sketchy and scary in New York and the 90s too. And so I think he was trying to like, but he kind of really went about it in this really like in the completely wrong way.
Mm,
And within doing so, just made it very unappealing to want to be in the club scene. And I had to
mm,
go because I had to leave the hotel. I had to leave the scene because I just couldn't get clean. I couldn't get
mm.
clean. I couldn't continue to go and do the things I was doing because I just associated drugs with it too much.
I
You know,
understand. And so where
drugs
did
was
you?
such a big part of the scene that the tunnel literally had the VIP room and the bathroom because we just never left the bathroom. We, I have a funny picture I could show you. So this is from my friend Stephen Eichner's book. It's called, oh, let me put a light on because it's getting dark in here in Oregon right now. It's called In the Limelight. It's my friend Steve Eichner. He was a photographer back then. He photographed club kids and celebrities at clubs all the time. So I'm gonna switch my camera. So this is the book. Can you, if you can see
Please.
that? Can you see that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
Okay, In the Limelight. This is me in the tunnel bathroom at
What?
like about, I think I'm about 16 years old in this picture. This is the
Oh,
tunnel
wow.
bathroom. Excuse the book because it got some water damage, but
No.
that's me in the green wig at 16. Um,
Wow.
so the drugs was such a big part of it. The VIP room was literally a all gender restroom. Back then, we didn't have all gender restrooms, and it was like a circular restroom with a bar in the middle. And we just hung out in the bathroom all night at the tunnel. So I don't even ever
Wow.
think that I've ever been down on the main floor of the tunnel because I was just always in the bathroom.
Do you remember? So, do you remember the music? Like, because these sound, even though they were drug full, it sounds like there's a reason why y'all wanted to go to these parties because they sound like they were really fun. People could express themselves. People could really, express their creativity in a way that wasn't accepted anyplace else. Like, what was the music like? What
Right.
was the vibe like as soon as you go into the club? Like, talk like give us like a play by play of getting ready, like selecting the outfits. Was it theme nights? Like did y'all decide, okay, we're gonna rock this tonight. We're gonna do it like this, or
Right.
like did everybody just do their own thing kind of?
Oh, kind of both. I mean, if we're talking about raves, I feel like the raves was a different kind of feeling. And this is kind of where I like got really kind of fell in love with it. We would go to
Mm,
raves. We go to a rave in Baltimore. You go to a rave in New Jersey. You go to a rave in New York. You go to a rave in Virginia. You're going to see the same people. The same people would
wow.
travel from wherever they were at. And I made friends that were all up and down the Eastern Seaboard of just constantly seeing the same people. And there would be parties and different, like Halloween always had a party called Masquerade, and it would be at a amusement park or at a, at a, I remember in like a warehouse. And so, you would do like a Halloween look for that, and then they would have one on Easter, and you'd wear all pastels because it's Easter, and or and you would just spend I would spend all I'm very into garments and clothing and looks, and so I would spend days thinking of what I was going to wear. And
Mm,
that was a lot of the fun of it, was getting ready. So you'd have the music going, and I feel like the music really played a big part because I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and electronica, freestyle music is a big part of my youth. Being a Latino, I love the freestyle music,
Lisa Colt
and
Jam, that type of
you
stuff.
know it,
Yeah.
baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Lizette Melendez, Stevie B, all of that. When I was
Mm-hmm.
coming up was like big time in the projects. You'd hear it pumping every Saturday. All the boys washing their cars, their Trans Ams, and the net shirts, and the music's pumping. So you'd be bumping the music, and the music was kind of almost experimental back then. It was not in the mainstream.
Mm,
When it started to morph into like real techno music, I'm
mm,
talking like Frankie Bones, and like
mm.
I can't think of other
Bobby Condors and stuff
Jason.
like that.
Right. It started
Yeah.
to become
Joey
more like
Beltram, like all that.
exactly like a it started to evolve. It's like people's own expression of like what this music was. And there was less words, and it was all about beat. And so you would, oh God, again, I get chills. I remember like just walking into the rave, and it would be like all your friends from all across the Eastern Seaboard. There are hundreds of people, and there would just be multiple rooms playing like different styles of techno. There would be the chill out room playing like trance, and then there would be like the breakbeat room where everybody's dancing, and then there would be the main floor that had like the main like type of techno that was happening, and
Mm,
it was just like a more of a familial type of feeling because a lot of us, we were all coming from broken homes, all coming from, used and abused New York City. And so we all were kind of having the same experiences as teens and young adults, in
mm,
the city at this time. And it was really a rough place to be. And so we all kind of commiserated and commune and became friends through the music, and it wasn't
mm,
music that was playing on the radio, so you almost felt like you were in this like secret club of like this
mm.
style of music that nobody's listening to. I mean, I couldn't even have it on a cassette tape or anything. I had a People used to sell mixtapes on St. Mark's Place, and you would have to go down to St. Mark's Place and they'd be on the street
Mm.
corners selling their mixtape, and that's how you would get a tape of any kind of techno or any kind of music like that that's not playing on the radio. But then when it got to the clubs, I feel like at the clubs it was more
Mm.
competitive, more about like, DJs making a name for themselves and really trying to succeed and like being a DJ, because back then being a DJ was like a side gig. It wasn't like your gig, right? Because
I
you're not going
see.
to make money being a DJ. There's very few people who I know who just became like DJs. But then it started to be that. It started to be like, you're doing your own mixtapes, then you start making your own music, and now being a DJ, you can do that. You can be a DJ at the Limelight for a couple of nights a week and make your rent and make your, be able to live. And then you could be a DJ, at raves and here and there. And then actually they started to get followings because, you hear a song or you hear a couple of songs. I really like this guy. I really like this person. And then like I
Mm.
said, we would follow. We would go all over the Eastern Seaboard. And if we knew you were DJing at a party and we wanted to go, we'd travel there to go see you. So then it became like, oh,
So
now
y'all would
this music
travel.
can make us money.
So y'all would travel out of state just to see your favorite DJ. So like say your DJ is gonna be
Always.
in Richmond, Virginia, you
Yep.
traveling to Richmond, or you say it's gonna be in Baltimore, you going to go to Baltimore. Like that's how dedicated these followings became.
Right. Like we had a
Who
core group of people who I was in the rave scene with, and my friend Harry Bernstein, shout out Harry, he had a station wagon. And so we would pile six, seven, eight, sometimes 10 people in the station wagon, and we would drive to wherever the fuck you were going to be DJing at if we liked you. And so I have been everywhere, like I said, Jersey, Baltimore, Connecticut, Virginia, Philly, Pittsburgh, uh, everywhere up and down the east. I went to Texas. I went to other places even further out that we would fly to. It just
what?
really depended. Oh yeah, it was strangely, even though that it was underground, we were all able to communicate somehow. This is before cell phones and all of these things. We all somehow were still able to communicate and know what was going on and where it was going on. And so
How did y'all like mainly communicate? Cause
honestly,
this
I
cause
think
this is before AOL and shit, right? Like before like a lot of
yeah,
people had it. Like AOL might have been around and like, Sleepless in
yeah.
Seattle and shit, but it might not have it wasn't everybody had it in their house and
No,
access to
computers
it.
were like,
Mm.
that was a luxury item, especially as a poor person. That's a luxury item back then.
Yeah.
Computers, not everybody had one. My brother had a computer when I was growing up because he's very into computers, but I think that's the only person I knew in my
Mm.
community, like where I grew up, that had a computer. It was all old school. It was all through like, you know, uh, telephone numbers, people having landlines, and or people even I wrote through people through the mail, like pen pal stuff. Like I'm like, so where are you going to be this weekend? And then wait for your letter to come back, and they're telling you where they're going to be, or like, just like that through word of mouth. Like it's very, again,
Mm.
DIY, do it yourself. You had to be very scrappy and very smart and really be into the scene to kind of
Mm,
know where everything was. You couldn't just casually be into it, right? So I
mm,
feel like a lot of people just were like really had a love for this and really did. I mean, like I said, if you can get thousands of people to show up on a Wednesday night in the city was crazy back then. And we were able to do it for years on end. Our parties were always stacked and full of all kinds of fun, crazy, wild people. And it was a lot of it was a really good time. And I don't want to paint it as being dark. There was some
mm-hmm.
darkness to it, but that
Yeah.
darkness could never overshadow or eclipse, the joy that I have of having been a part of this movement and to unknowingly and unwittingly have been a part of this movement because I had no clue that this is what
Mm,
this was going to be, that I was going to be in books and magazines and doing interviews. It just was something that was natural to me to be doing. And I feel
mm,
like that's how it was for a lot of other people. And I think it was a way for us to be able to express ourselves that we didn't have. It wasn't acceptable. It was weird to be weird back then. It was weird to look
mm,
different back then. Now and maybe we played a part in that. Maybe we played a part in it being a bit more acceptable to be different and be weird and be queer
mm,
and be, outrageously queer and unabashedly queer.
mm,
Because the days I've spent in my youth running home from school so I didn't get beat up because I refused to not look the way that I wanted to look and not
mm,
dress and I refused to fit in because that was not me. That's not me. And I didn't want to tamp down my energy and myself to just fit in. I could have ended up being a little project queen and with my
mm,
little Puerto Rican boyfriend working at the bodega, but that's not what I wanted in my life. I wanted to
mm,
escape from that. And
mm,
so I needed to be away from that because it was killing me.
mm,
And I love to see the children today, boys holding hands on the street, and kiss. I never thought in my lifetime I would see such a thing. And I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. And I love the children. And, I'm glad that I was a part of something that people look back to and are amazed and I want them, and that's what I want. You know, I don't want them to think that this was about, we were just all drug junkies who kill people. I don't want people to think that. That's the last thing I want people to think. That was one
mm,
person. That was two people
mm,
out of over 50.
mm.
So the majority of us were good, just trying to make art and have fun and live life and just live life in a way that we weren't hiding ourselves anymore. You know,
So one thing
that's
that
what it was about.
I love that. And one thing like that sticks out to me is just how deeply connected y'all were and how it was a genuine subculture. So how
So
would somebody go about being like, I want to be down with y'all?
I'll tell you like sort of how I did it.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I when I was in high school still, and I was I said people would hand out flyers on the street, right? So me
Yeah.
and my best friend would cut out of high school and we go to the village, the West Village, and that's where a lot of people would hand out and we would take our clothes on the train when we got to Washington Square Park. We would change in the park and we put on our crazy outfits. We'd walk around the village. And so they
Mm,
would see us and they would hand me little VIP cards for the limelight or VIP. And that would just get you in the door. That's pretty much it. But I had a lot of confidence back then. So I would bring a bunch of hot girlfriends with me. And I would tell my mom I was sleeping over at a friend's house and we'd go to my friend's house and we'd all get ready and put on our garments. We'd take the subway to Limelight usually. And I would just walk right up to the doorman and I would say, oh, here's my VIP card. And these are my +1 and my +2. And they would just, oh, Kenny would be like,
mm,
darling, yes, darling, yeah, come. And then eventually they would recognize me because I would keep going.
mm,
And, it would be a bunch of bridge and tunnel people online. Here I would come sauntering up in my outfit with my two hot girlfriends, you know, and Kenny would just usher me right to the front and pull me in. And so once I got pulled in, there always was like a VIP area where all the club kids would hang out, like was the shampoo room at the Limelight. And so usually Cody Ravioli would work the like the rope to get into the shampoo room. And like I said, I was ballsy and I wanted to be a part of it. So I would just go and act like I knew her and be like, "Hi, gorgeous. Hi, darling. How are you? Kiss, kiss." And she would just let me right by the VIP row. And then once I got past the VIP row, I just schmoozed and I just started talking to people and walking around and making myself known, you know? And that's how I started meeting people. And then I would get invited to more parties and then I would get let into the VIP rooms, and that's kind of how it all evolved, right? You'd have to kind of
Mm,
like either insert yourself in there or find or meet somebody who's part of it that feels like, yes, let's bring this person into our fold, you know? And you had to be ballsy and you had to be wacky enough to really like push the envelope because that's what we liked. We liked pushing the envelope. We liked like, we liked you to look crazy and be crazy, and that was the fun of it. It was like,
mm,
that crazy gender expression and that crazy, like Lee Bowery was a great, muse for me. I love Lee Bowery's looks and his style and got to know him a little bit, not a whole lot before he passed
wow.
away. Yeah. So, I mean,
Rest in peace, Lil Bowery.
rest in peace, Lee. Gorgeous person, fabulous person. And like I said, a lot of us were, and that's where it gets lost. That's where the narrative gets lost. And that's why I wanted to start doing this because I want people to realize that we weren't like a bunch of crazy drug addicted people just like out there like
Like
a
this
lot
was
of
a art.
time, effort, and thought, and yes, and I used to work two, three jobs sometimes. I used to work at this strip club that was called the Harmony Theater down in Tribeca before Tribeca was a thing, and it was a straight strip club, but I got a job in the box office, like taking money and making change and dealing with the girls and all that stuff. And within, and then I would work the Harmony Theater in the daytime. I would go home from the Harmony Theater. I was in continuing education at FIT. I would go to my continuing education class. I would go home. I would make myself an outfit at the hotel. Then I would take a shower, put my outfit up, put my makeup on, go to the club, work at the club until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then do it all again the next day. Like I
Mm,
was on a constant rotation of like, work this job, work that job, work school, work, and be in the clubs and party, 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 party. And like, of course, drugs had a big part of it, but also I had a big part of it. And I wanted it. I wanted it enough that I would uh, push myself to whatever extreme I had to go to be a
mm,
part of that and to do what I was doing because to me it was like art. It was like I keep saying the word art because it's like it's an expression of me that I wasn't able to really do in the situation that I was coming from.
mm,
So to finally feel free enough to be myself and not have to worry about my safety or worry about
yeah.
people talking shit to me or whatever was just such an amazing and free experience that I don't think that the kids today will ever be able to know. And I'm happy in a way that they don't ever have to know that they're free to be themselves. But then I will also say this, and when it was subversive, it was more fun
Mm,
just because it wasn't so out there. It was just like it wasn't so everywhere. You had to seek it out. You had to really want it, and it was a lot more fun that way than
I
just
feel
being
you.
able
It
to
was
go anywhere and figure
you
it out.
say you say now it's like more like homogenized, like cookie cutter. Like back in those days, you really had to want to be a part of the subculture. You really had to seek it out. You really had to be in the know.
Right. And so all the people who did it, we all really wanted it. We all really wanted to make this was our way of making a name for ourselves. We're not gonna none of us are gonna be movie stars or pop singers or anything. That wasn't like the wheelhouse, right? The wheelhouse was just like being a weirdo and being wacky and zany and who was the
Mm,
best at that. So it was more about you as a person than like what ability do you have? Because a lot of us didn't have any ability to do anything. A lot of people just like danced in a cage. just showed up. Amanda Lepore makes balloon animals. So it's like a lot of us didn't do a whole lot. It was just about like being able to be ourselves, being able to not feel like you're going to get punched in the face for wearing fishnet stockings on the bus.
Mm,
you know so to feel that, I don't know that anybody could ever understand what that feels like. It's an amazing feeling to walk into a room and there's thousands of people and you don't feel at all uncomfortable or like I said, something could happen, right?
yeah,
uh I just felt free at last, free at last. you know
yeah.
that's what I felt, and it was an amazing feeling, an amazing part of my life. I don't live for that part of my life anymore. I'm way
Mm-hmm.
past that now, but I'm glad I was a part of it, and I'm glad I got to be there, and I'm glad the children look to us for inspiration. I'm also glad I'm here to tell the tale
Mm,
because I could have been dead a number of times for
mm,
various reasons, and I somehow Jesus wants me to be here, and you
mm.
know what, if that's what Jesus wants, I'm not one to question it. You know what I'm saying?
No, most
So
definitely. And I just want to commend you too for like being so open about your struggle with drug addiction. Because I myself, I'm in recovery, too. I've been sober a year, so I know how difficult that is, especially when that's such a huge part of how you socialize with people, how you relate to people, how you connect with other people in your culture. So like
yeah.
when when did you leave New York per se?
I only left New York about 15 years ago. I got
Mm-hmm.
married to my second husband, and we decided that it was either like continue to live in New York and continue to be part of the rat race and continue to try to be successful in New York, which is a very difficult thing to do, or
Yeah.
to my husband had come into a little drop of money, not a whole lot, 10 grand he
Mm-hmm.
had come into, and it was like either let's go find a good apartment and get married, or let's leave New York and get married and live somewhere else. And
Mm-hmm.
so we decided to leave New York. At this point, I was a chef. I had my own restaurant and I was just kind of
Wow.
like drowning in like work. I would sleep on top of the walk-in. I had a roll up on top of the walk-in that I would sleep in because it was just I barely left, and
Mm,
I was tired of it, and my husband was tired of what he was doing, and so
mm,
we just like New York is for the young or the rich or both.
mm.
And like if you're not young and you don't want it enough, and also as a born and raised New Yorker, New York was my little town. I was trying to escape. Everybody's always trying to escape their little
Mm,
towns, right? I didn't grow up in Park Avenue. I didn't grow up in Manhattan. I grew up in a really shitty part of Queens. No shade to Queens, but where I grew up was not a great place, and I just wanted out of there for a very long time. So I left 15 years ago and I moved to Portland, Oregon. I've been here 15 and
mm.
I love it here.
I love
I love
that.
it here. Yeah,
I,
it's just like, sometimes you gotta reckon with it. Are you gonna stay in New York and try to scrape by? I could never live the way that I live here in New
mm,
York. It's just like I would have 10 roommates and living in a two-bedroom apartment. I don't want all that.
yeah.
I'm a certain age, and at this point, the unfortunate part of drug use is this, right? Like you stop growing like when you started using drugs, right? For me, that was about 14 years old. So I've only been clean off of drugs for about 15 to 20 years at this point. And I mean,
Mm,
even though that sounds like a long time, it's really not. And so I had to start growing from the age of 14 when I was in my 30s, you know? And
mm,
so at that point, I was like, I don't have the energy to try to like now somehow try to be successful as a middle-aged person in New York and be able to live the way that I wanted to live. So I
mm,
had to. Plus, I didn't like what was going on with Bloomberg being mayor after Giuliani, and just kind of the way the city was going and being
mm,
commodified and commercialized. I was not into that. I didn't like that. All the places that I knew and were fun to me growing up were now, gentrified, commodified, and uh,
How
it's
did
it,
you
it.
let me ask you this. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's
My bad. How did you stay connected with other people in the club scene? And also like, how do you stay connected to the music? Like, has the music like, played still a big role to you? Or do you feel like, you know, now that I would say like things are more homogenized, like if things have become watered down, like as far as music, as far as fashion, like, you
well,
know,
for sure.
like
Well,
speak to that. Like,
freestyle is always going to be on heavy rotation in this house as well. Be, um, old school house music always and forever
mm,
has a big place in my heart. Always on heavy rotation here at House Row Squared. So I actually didn't for a while. When I dropped off out of the club kids scene, out of the club scene, I had to remove myself completely to be able to get to where I wanted to be
mm,
with the drugs. I had to really step away. I also had mental illness, which played a big part in me not being able to get clean. So I really had to do a lot of work on myself. I had to go into hospitals and I had to go and address my mental illness, which I had never done before. So it was a very long journey of self exploration, self discovery, and becoming the person that I wanted to be and the person who I really was. Right, because
mm,
drugs clouded that for a very long time for me. So I did step away from it for a very long time. And then, funny enough, when I met my husband and started dating him, he was the one who introduced me to Facebook. And I was not didn't want to put myself out there at first, but then I was like, oh, let me just see what happens. And I just started dicking around on Facebook and eventually got back in contact with all of my friends practically that I knew from back in the day because everybody was on Facebook and it was easy to find them and look them up. And
mm,
a lot of them were still, doing the things they loved. Asher Earl was still doing hair and makeup, and my friend Corey Field was still doing hair and makeup as well. And my friend Willem is still a DJ. So it was very easy to kind of reconnect and kind of pick up where we all left off.
mm,
And to see that so many of my friends did make it through really was great for me because, a lot of them I wondered about, a lot of them wondered about me, because we didn't know. Once it was dispersed, it was everybody kind of scattered in their own direction. And so a lot of
mm.
us lost contact with each other. Michael was a, unfortunately a common thread for most of us. So,
I
and
see.
then just the whole scandal of like the clubs being shut down and people didn't want to be associated with that for a bit because it was
Mm,
just such a scandal, a big scandal. People were kind of like shying away of being, part of that culture. And
yeah.
so I really sought it out again. Again using my DIY skills, I just went on Facebook and reconnected that way. And the music thing though has never stopped for me. I've always loved music, and so yes, it's become homogenized, become like, electronic and everything, but there is still a very big underground scene. There still is a lot of people who are doing their own thing and doing the old school shit and hearkening to old school to kind of find their place. And there's this great little Puerto Rican girl from New York who's a new style, they call it freestyle person. Her name is Alexis J. Look her up. She's
Lexus J.
amazing. Shout out
I
Alexis
definitely
J.
will.
She's
Brenda
amazing
K.
and
Star, I
she's
forgot
she's
about her
carrying.
too.
Oh, Miss Brenda K.
That's
Star, yeah,
another.
she's old school. But Alexis J, she's new school. So she's doing kind of like a new thing on freestyle. I follow a lot of people here on TikTok. I follow a lot of music things on, when I was on Facebook and Instagram. So I've always just kind of kept my nose in it and just kind of seeing. So there is a lot still happening. But, I will say I am kind of like one of those old queens where I'm kind of a little bit stuck musically back then just because to me that was like the renaissance of it all, right? Like that was the renaissance time of freestyle and house music and club music, and they all had it was just a different feeling than being able to put it on the radio. And like I said, it was almost like a secret that you had back then of going and finding the
Mm,
mixtape and bringing it home and putting it on, and nobody else has it. And so I don't really follow like mainstream music that much anymore. There are
mm.
some acts here and there that speak to me, but not a whole lot of them. I always find everything underground through following people and seeing what other friends of mine are listening to now and where they're at, what's going
Talk to me, like, since we're talking about music, do you like stay connected with clubs out on the West Coast? Like, do you go out to, rave still? And,
on. Oh
do you
yes. Oh
do you
yeah.
still go to clubs? Like, how's the scene in Portland?
Okay. Yes, I do actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I have removed myself for a long time because I had to get sober. I am what they call California sober now. So I do smoke weed and I
Yeah.
will drink occasionally. But yeah, I mean, my friend Dylan Martin, and so when my husband and me were moving here, we drove cross country to get here. We rented a car and drove across country. And on our way, I spent my time in the car, once again on Facebook, befriending any drag queen or person that I could find on Facebook. And when we got here, we already had friends, like
Mm,
right when we landed. So my friend Dylan Martin was one of those people, and he was throwing a lot of underground warehouse parties, house music parties. I became friends with some of the top DJs here in Portland. Shout out DJ Sappho. She's one of my
mm,
favorites. She's like the premier lesbian DJ out here. And there was a lot of cute things going on. Unfortunately, moved to LA a couple of years ago, and that's kind of dropped off a little bit. So I don't do like the major clubs out here because there's just not that many of them that
mm,
interest me, or like they just again is not the same feeling. So I was doing a lot of his underground parties. I will occasionally go out to something here. I still do
mm,
make clothes for people. So a lot of times, if I've made a garment, I'll show up at the night to help them get dressed and to see everything and all that. So that's
mm.
how I've stayed connected out here. But I'm an old bitch now, and so I'm in my waning days, and I don't know. My health is not the greatest, and so I don't know how much longer I have left on this earth, and I don't, So I do. It's a struggle now for me. I have a lot of physical stuff that I can't do anymore. So it's
Mm.
I leave it for the children more now, but
Well, you look
I
damn
do try to
good.
stay connected. Well,
You
that's
look damn good.
ethnic skin, darling. You know about that.
You
You
got
know
that, you got
about
that, you got that ice in your veins. That's why. You got that ice in your veins. Hmm.
right. So,
Now, what I was gonna ask you too, and you could answer it if you want to, if you don't want to. But when I mentioned RuPaul earlier, it was kind of like like is like RuPaul seen as like too commercial? Is that the thing?
I
Like,
guess that depends on who you ask, but if you're asking me, I would have to say absolutely yes, because
mm,
when I knew RuPaul and RuPaul was part of my scene, RuPaul was not a drag queen. RuPaul was a club kid, and her outfits were not. She didn't look like she looks now. She was kind of a gender bender, kind of masculine slash feminine, which everybody was kind of doing back then. She didn't do
yeah,
like very high femme female drag. And I
mm,
unfortunately think that within her, moving into that realm and being successful in that realm, it kind of put it everywhere on the main stage and made it into more of like something that just everybody has a hand and everybody wants to do, and every like again, in a way it's great, but in a way it's like become overly saturated, and there's even become like a level of like where they call like RuPaulicize it. It's like kind of make it like less weird and more pretty, and it's like
I
I like weird.
understand.
I like the weird. I don't like the fishy. It has its place, but it's not in my world. I like weird. I like gender bender. I like strange. I don't. And so she kind of changed over, and I feel like she's a bit of a sellout, unfortunately. That's just my opinion, and that's how I'm going to call it because it's my truth. She's a sellout. She comes from us, and she's sold out to corporate America, and you can use her name
Mm,
for anything. You want to buy it for a birthday party, she'll do it, and that,
mm,
Lady Bunny said it well. She said that she's a walking advertisement. So
uh,
I mean, it is. She
yeah.
has a brand she's trying to keep. But again, I can't fault her. It's another, person coming from where I come from who's just was trying to make it and did
Mm-hmm.
make it. So
Yeah.
kudos to her. But
Yeah.
it's not my vibe. It's not my bag. It doesn't interest me. I find it to be more boring, and everybody looks the same. Everybody does the same makeup. Everybody does the same thing. Let's pull makeup looks from different places. Let's do James St. James makeup. Let's do Evan
Mm,
Lettuce makeup. Let's do, you know, makeup from, like things that are just a little bit weirder, and um, Kabuki Starshine makeup. Like they're just like different and
mm,
weird, and expression, and just everything has to be the same eyebrow, the same eye, the same contouring, the same. I like my queens to be a little brick, to be honest.
mm,
It's just like I like them to be funny and weird, and it just doesn't seem to be the case. So I don't have anything against her. I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with her back in the day. She's a little bit older than me, so I'd see her here and there, and that was kind of mostly it. So I don't really have too much of an opinion beyond that. I just feel like she really kind of oversaturated the market with like all this like
mm.
kind of bland, tepid drag, as we'll say.
I understand. It became cookie cutter and lost its edge, is what you're saying. Like it
Absolutely.
lost its, like you said, subversiveness, like you were talking about earlier.
Right, right. And like I've never taken my inspiration from like, like run of the mill drag. All of my looks and all of my things that I've done is they're like kind of like space agey, futuristic. That's always
Mm,
been my vibe. And so I don't really do the that sort of thing. So it's just never spoken to me. So it's just like what she does doesn't speak to me. I would watch Dragula before I watched Drag Race. So
mm. I was talking to somebody and they were saying how, the fashion world was heavily influenced by y'all and like what you were doing. Like speak to that. Like, would you see designers at these clubs when y'all were there? Like, were they like trying to befriend
oh, for
y'all
sure.
and like your time
For
in fashion?
sure.
Like, were they like, did they at least give opportunities to y'all, you feel like, like, okay,
Oh
be my
well,
intern or be, come and, here's this job and stuff like that? Or was it more like they was kind of dropping in and just seeing what y'all were doing and then just taking it on their own?
oh no, there's been many nights that I partied with John Galliano and Todd Oldham, and they even had rooms at the tunnel that was, named for them. This room, the Todd Oldham room. This room was that room, and yeah, they showed up quite often, and we partied with them. I've done lots of coke with lots of designers. Um, I would have to say Patricia Field was one of the people who really gave us our big break. Like I
Mm,
said, she's the costume designer from Sex and the City, and she did the original pants on Olivia Newton-John in Grease
mm,
way back when, and so she's been around for a while. And she used to run a boutique on 8th Street in the West Village that employed all the trans people and gay people and weirdos and whack jobs. We all worked there. And she had a
mm,
showroom, and she really gave a lot of chances to a lot of us started there, and
mm,
there were other designers too. Anna Sui was one, Betsy Johnson's another who gave a lot of people, their starts. I feel like people are still doing it. Like I don't know if you've ever heard of Ficalis Materialis, I believe is how it's. I don't speak French
oh
very well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fecal matter. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, and Amanda
They're
Lepore
down.
was just in their show.
Yup. And they're down
Oh,
with Rick Owens. Yup.
is
Or Salvesia.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
That is that they're continuing the trend and the what we were doing absolutely, because I look at their collection and I'm like, these are absolutely things I would have made or worn or both. And
Mm,
So there, it's continued, and I feel like it has definitely, like, even just with like Balenciaga, you know,
mm.
old Balenciaga used to be kind of tired and boring, and then like it became different in like the 90s and 2000s and started to be weirder, and where they have, a thing of tape as a bracelet or that's something I would have worn to the club back then. And a lot of
No,
people
of
were
course.
were taking from us. Bjork, she was another one who we would party with all the time, and a lot of her music videos kind of started to emulate what we were doing, and her looks started to evolve. I didn't care for her very much, but her looks kind of started to emulate that. So yeah, there were always designers and musicians and a lot of people that were there. It just kind of depended on who it was, as if we partied with them or not, you know.
Mm.
But they were there, and they were always, I think, looking for like inspiration for their lines from us for sure. Like they were looking for, how to have that street cred, and that's when you see like a lot of these designers like Balenciaga change and
Mm.
turn into something a little bit weirder when they really kind of weren't before, Um,
Was
sitting in the
Madonna
clean.
around a lot?
Again, she's older than me, and
Mm.
so not in my experience. I've seen her out here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
not anybody that I partied with or like know on a personal level. Um, she was like doing like the Mud Club and Danceteria, and those places had closed by the
Yeah.
time I went out to clubs. She's probably about 15 years older than me, so I think that
So she wasn't still
she
coming out at this time. She was like already famous doing her thing. She wasn't still like interacting with
right,
New York culture at that
not
point
not
after
in
she
that
had made
way,
it. I
right,
see.
not in
I
that way.
see.
Madonna's a little
Interesting.
bit of like someone who uses people to get to where she needs to be, which again is fine. And
Mm,
look, anybody who's willing to fight for it, I give them their cred. But that's kind of what she does. She just takes from things and then makes it her own. And so by that point, she had already done all that. She had already become
I
like
see.
a mega star, and she was not part of what we were doing. I
Mm,
wouldn't ever have called her a club kid anyway. She was more of just like kind of like a dance person. She comes from dance. She studied dance in Michigan. She is mostly a dancer. So I
mm,
think her vibe was to go and dance, and that's how
I
she
see.
wasn't a drug user. She wasn't an alcohol user. So she just kind of went to dance. And I think after time that kind of, that rubs off. You don't feel so like, let's go dancing every night kind of thing. I don't know, but
Mm,
no, she wasn't really part of I say I saw Grace Jones a lot more than I saw Madonna.
wow. Wow.
Grace Jones
Now,
was always at the club. She was in town. She was at Limelight. She was at Palladium. She was at Tunnel. She was in. Yeah, there was just like other people that were kind of more underground were the people that we were hanging out with.
mm,
So, like I said,
what
Bjork was a
DJs,
big one.
what DJs do you feel like showed y'all like the most love?
Willem was my number one favorite. He DJ'd Shampoo Room at Limelight, and he was Walt Paper's boyfriend for a while. I
Mm,
don't know if you know Walt Paper or who they
yup.
are.
On the wallpaper, yup.
So Walt, shout out Walt, love you, baby. And
Mm,
Willem, shout out Willem, I love you too. They were a big part of Willem was like partied with us, hung out with us, dated Walt. There was Scotto. Scotto was a big guy who really was Dimitri. There's two Dimitris, so
Dimitri from
CJ
Paris?
Dimitri, yes, and as well as Dimitri from Delight as well was
Oh,
um,
that Dimitri. So y'all was
yes,
around
Miss
Lady Miss
Kier.
Kier a lot.
Oh, one of my great friends, Miss Kier.
Wow.
Yes, Miss Kier
Wow.
Kirby. Shout out Miss Kier Kirby. Yep, that's my girl. Yep, party with her all the time.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, she's another one who sadly got caught up in the scenario of drugs, and could have been something really big. And drugs ruined a lot for us, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm in one of Delight's videos.
Which one? Which one?
It's one called Apple Juice Kissing, but I don't know if it's like it's a big video. It's like one off of their like second or third album. And at that point, they were kind of waning, but we filmed it in Central Park at like dawn when the sun was just coming up. We came out of the club and we all met in Central Park and did the video. And
Oh, I'm cutting
uh,
it in there. I'm cutting it in.
I know, yeah, you gotta
Just
find
like
it.
I do. I'm gonna find it. You know how I be finding stuff. But like,
Mhm.
you know, one of the questions I have, because you were talking about making it, and I hear this a lot from other people in the scene and who, used to go to clubs. They talk about like, capitalism kind of ruined, the club scene. It kind of ruined, the underground scene. Um, what did making it look like to y'all back in those days? Like, did y'all even think that far ahead? Or was it just like, I hope to make it like as a fashion designer or as a musician or as, using this as a launching pad to, build myself up. And like, was it just so many possibilities in the air, or was it just like we just having fun?
I think for me personally, I was just trying to like live
Mm,
and have fun and not be stuck where I was coming from. My whole thing was to escape.
I
And
understand.
what going to fashion school, going to FIT, and that's why I put myself through school. It took me 6 years to get a 2 year degree because I was just going like the bare minimum. So I was doing all these other things and like I was dropping classes and picking them back up because I needed to get away from what I was experiencing as a young person. And I was just trying to have fun. And I think what would have looked like making it to me back then would have just been like being a designer or being part of a design house where I was doing fashion and living in that world. I think
Mm,
would have been, oh wow, I've made it. To me, it wasn't about like being exceptionally rich or like Madonna level of notoriety. I wasn't doing it for fame or notoriety. I was doing it because it was just an expression of self.
mm,
And to me, I wasn't even thinking that I didn't even think I was going to be alive past 30. So I wasn't thinking about like, oh well, where is this going to take me? Where is this going to lead me? Other people did think that way, like RuPaul. And so that's how she got her little avenue, right? And so I think the majority of us though were not thinking that way. This was a way of like, how do we survive? How do we live? How does Amanda Lepore make it as a trans person
mm,
living in New York at this time, right? She can't work at the at the supermarket, right? So she's got to find somewhere where she can make money to live and fit in and enjoy your life,
mm.
right? I didn't want to have some stupid 9 to 5 job that I hated in some office that I got to wear a suit to. It's so not me. I've never owned a pair of jeans in my life. I've never owned a t-shirt. I have my around the house t-shirt. That's what I have. I don't own things like that because it's not who I am.
You've
You know,
never
up
owned a pair
until
of jeans?
no, I all maybe like once or twice here or there, but like it's not like a regular thing in my wardrobe. I make all my own clothes.
Mm,
I don't dress like that. If you look at my stuff, I don't look like that. So um to me it was just about survival and being able to express myself and being able to, you know, find camaraderie and friendship
mm,
and family. It's like when you're someone like us, yeah, you don't always have like real family, right? I was trying to escape my real family. So this was my family. These are the people I made my family. And that's really what I was after. I was just after a place to belong, you know? And as you said, as things have become, capitalism and, I mean, that's the American way. Everything at some point, no matter how underground is going to be capitalized, made money off of. So, I just keep going into the future. So now this is what's hot now. I'm past that already. I'm on to the next thing, one, two, and three, because my brain is always in the future. I'm never like in what the
mm.
current thing is. And when I was younger, everybody thought I was weird and I looked weird, and now everybody's wearing what I wore back then, and what I looked like back then. So I'm always looking to the future. I'm always, even in my old age, trying to be ahead of the curve, but capitalism ruins everything pretty much always. It's like, that's why I feel the way I do about RuPaul is because, you know, uh, some things we need to leave alone and just let it,
Mm.
let it be underground. Let it stay underground. Let it stay subversive because subversive can be fun. Subversive is the fun part. That's the
Mm,
fun part. The finding out where the thing was, the getting ready, the going to it. That was like 75% of the fun. Fuck when you got there. It was all the fun
mm.
was getting
The
there, was getting there
anticipation.
and getting there and finding out. And like I said, it felt like a kind of like dirty little secret that you have that nobody
Mm,
else knows about. And you could hold that inside of you and be like, this is something that's mine. And this is something
mm,
that is not everybody else on the face of the planet walking down the streets. This is mine and this belongs to me, you know? And
mm.
so that's what it was for me. I never fit in wherever I was at. I was always the odd person out. I always
Yeah.
felt othered, and I
Mm,
always, people always go, "Oh, you're from New York. That must have been such a great place to grow up," and blah 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 blah. Like I said, I didn't grow up on Park Avenue South like you see in the movies, like on Central Park or something like that, where I lived in some big town. I grew up in the projects on Hillside Avenue in Queens, and it was not a great experience as a young queer person of color. So I
mm.
needed to get the fuck out of there however I could. And for me, this was my escape, and this was a way for me to get out. And I could make money doing something that I love to be doing. So,
Do you feel, because you said like you just wanted to express yourself, you weren't doing it, to be famous or nothing like that. Do you feel like a lot of people now are doing this shit to be famous, like are trying to be weird or trying to be different or trying
oh,
to,
absolutely.
get into this, culture to be just famous instead of just, you know, expressing themselves?
Absolutely. I mean, they always say, any press is good press, right? Whether it's bad
Hmm.
or good or weird or whatever. And I use like Lady Gaga as a prime example. Again, someone I do not like or listen to or have any affiliation with is not my.
What?
I feel like Lady Gaga has taken. Well, first of all, she's not a queer person. We'll start there. Secondly, you know, she's like Madonna in a way that she like steals things from people and and makes that her own. And so like a lot of stuff that she's done and worn and looks like I've seen that already. I've seen that a
Yeah.
million times. Her meat dress, not original. I've seen that. The shoes McQueen has been doing for years. It's like she's styled by people anyway. She's a rich girl from Westchester County who went to boarding school. She's never been weird in her whole entire life. She has no idea what it is to exist on this planet as someone who is strange and to be othered all the time. So
Mm,
I feel like she just uses it as a way to put her name out there and to be
mm,
weird. Her music is unoriginal and is very boring and does not sound like somebody I would think what she looks like would make much stranger, you know, uh, music. And I just don't find that to be the case. And you can say that about multiple people, right? Sia is another one who just kind of like wants to look weird for the sake of looking weird. If you don't know what it's like, if I can't look at a picture of you from when you were 12 and see the weirdo inside of you, then I just don't buy it. You have to be if you're not yourself your whole life. You look at pictures of Lady Gaga in high school. She looks like a teeny bopper, like with her little penny loafers on and her little sweatshirt, permed hair. She doesn't look like a weirdo. I look like a weirdo since I was a little kid. I had existed in a world where I was made fun of all the time and teased, and I didn't stop, and I didn't buy those pairs of jeans and t-shirts to fit in because it just was not me. And so
mm,
I feel like people absolutely do that, but this is not new, right? People have been doing that forever. People who are non-original. We've already mentioned Andy Warhol. People who are, not really that out there,
yeah.
stealing from, taking from. And is it stealing or is it admiration? Right? Are we admiring and being
Appropriation or
jealous? Right.
appreciation. Yup.
Right, exactly. And so if it's not from admiration and it's not for admiration, then I think that it could be a bad thing. But if you're doing it in appreciation, like you said, then to me, fabulous. Do it as much
Mm.
as you like.
Now,
Do
what
it
does
as much as
that what does that look like when it is from appreciation versus
I could
appropriation?
I couldn't tell you because I'm not one of the children. But like I said, if I don't if I don't see you as being weird and having that streak in you already, then I think you're just trying to steal it for the sake of it, you know? And
Mm,
so if you legitimately have that weird streak in you, let's say, and I could see that, and I could see that you're not, because some people it takes time for you to really come into your own and really like realize who you are. But there's those like trends going around where it's like, show the picture that tells the ending. And it's like little
mm,
queer kid in the picture, and then it's like a drag queen, it's the ending. Like if I
yeah,
can't look at a picture or get some vibe off you that you're already going that way, then to me it seems like it's just for the sake of doing it. And,
yeah.
I don't know where that ends up on the admiration slash stealing scale because I just never had that experience. So I wouldn't know. But I mean, but like all press is good press. So I'm happy they do it. And now fashion, you know, I just always like things to be pushing ahead. I don't like fashion that goes backwards and takes from the past because we've already done that, right? We've already done A, B, and C. I like things that are pushing it forward. Now, so
Mm,
like if you look at like we were talking about fecal matter, right? They're taking from 90s club kid culture, absolutely. There's no denying it, but there's also a way that they're doing it that seems fresh and seems new and seems exciting for now, right? Doesn't seem like they're just blatantly taking a look and copy paste onto, you know, they're they're taking an inspiration and then they're twisting it into their own version of. And so
mm,
that's what I think where fashion is always great and has always spoken to me because you can speak volumes through what you wear and what you look like. You
mm,
don't even have to say a word. It could be what you're wearing, what you look like that would tell me who you are as a person, you know?
mm,
And that's where I think fashion should stay is,
mm,
people interpreting it through their own lens and always moving forward and never moving backwards. We shouldn't be doing, you know, Victorian wear nowadays has been done a million times. It's like, there's a certain time we have to retire it and we have to
yeah.
put things away and we have to say, okay, that goes to the library and stays there and we keep moving forward,
Mm,
right? That's what I think. I think I love all kinds of things. I'm very inspired by, African, the Middle East. I wear a lot of turbans and head wraps and things of like that
mm,
nature. And I take a lot and I say inspiration because I don't like blatantly steal things and call it my own. I take
yeah.
inspiration, and that's what I think it should always be. It should always be you taking something, twisting it, making it your own, and making it something that speaks to you you
Mm,
know, instead of just
mm,
going out and buying things because that's what's in the store. I always say this. I feel like social media has made everybody a little bit stupider. You would
mm,
think that social media makes everybody smarter because there's all this information out there that you can access at any time, right? Like in my day, I had to go, if I wanted to access something, I had to go to a library, I had to go to a museum, I had to go to a record shop, I had to go to a music store, I had to find these things, I had to find out about them, I had to hear about them. Now there's so much stuff out there, people don't bother to learn about anything. I talk to gay people who are younger than me and they don't know who like queer icons are from back in the day.
like
They don't
who?
even know who Lee Bowery is. A great example. Nobody knows who Lee Bowery is, what he's done, what he looks like, what anything. People don't know. People don't even know who Grace Jones is. I was speaking to a
Wow.
gay person. They know who Taylor Swift is. He doesn't know who Grace Jones is. And it's like these are people that are queer icons. These are people that have paved the way for us to be here. People,
Mm-hmm.
even in the club kid culture, only know who Michael Alig is. What about everybody else? There was
Mm,
dozens of us. There were dozens of us, and people don't have any clue who James St. James is. Well, I won't say James St. James because he's in that movie, but
mm,
other people, are not known
mm,
because it was just like just now. you want to find out about something, you got to wait for someone to say it to you. You're like, okay, I'll go look it up when I get home. And so people
Mm,
don't bother.
mm.
I feel like there's so much information now that like people just think like I
They
don't want
take
to
it
fill
for
my head up with
granted.
all this information, right? And then they're like, so if I do hear about something, I'll just Google it when I get home. And I mean, Google is a great resource. I Google lots of shit myself to this day because certain things I don't know and I just ask Google. But it's like if you just like, you know, uh, rely just everything on Google or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, yeah, all those things are tailored to you as well. And so you
Mm,
don't know like the other side of the coin, right? You don't know. I always think to my, this is very true, at least to me, but I think that like I was in debate when I was in high school, and my debate teacher loved to make me debate things she knew I was against.
mm,
I was anti-fur. I was a vegan back then, and all these things. And I was very like staunch in these like political views that I had as a teenager. And she would purposely make me um, debate the opposite of what I believe because she told me that in order to have a good argument about what you believe and why you believe it, you need to know the other side of the coin, and you
mm,
need to understand why other people don't believe what you believe and are against what you believe and vice versa. You can't just say, oh, I believe this for absolutely no reason. You have to
mm,
have something, and you can, and then when you know the opposite side of the coin, you can say, well, this is why I don't agree with A, B, and C, right? And so people don't bother to do that anymore, and it's sad because I hate talking to younger queer people a lot of the time nowadays because I don't nobody knows anything. If it's not Britney Spears or Madonna or Taylor Swift, we don't know. And that's because these are people who have been on their TVs since they were young, and they've had no reason to have to go outside of that to look for anything else because it's all being curated for you by the general media and masses. So
mm,
I don't. Like I said, I like subversive. I like under the radar. I like things that are underground. So all this like commercialized queerness doesn't speak to me because I just don't.
mm.
I always thought when I was younger I would love to see a movie where men were kissing or holding hands or something like that. Now I don't give a shit. It's so stupid. It's like it's just as bad as the straight stuff. It's just like what terrible Hallmark romance movie can we make this you know. And so, the few queer movies I saw when I was young, I
Mm,
was like, this is great, and like
mm,
excited me and made me want to do my thing, and revved
mm,
me up and got me excited. And now it just doesn't get me excited. It's like, you know, there's so much information that people don't bother and don't bother to find out. I think every young queer person should have a queer history class
mm.
before they're allowed to be set loose voguing into the world because nobody knows this stuff. This stuff that we're talking about is like it's like everybody's like blown out of the water and their minds explode. Like, wow, all this stuff happened. Like they don't
Mm.
even know, and it's crazy. It's like God, like and then the things people do get known for, like Delight, is just known for that one stupid song, "Grooves in the
And
Heart,"
they had
which is probably like,
such
oh, they have such a great catalog of
such a
music, and that's
such a
probably
great
my number one.
catalog. And might I add you, like, what was so interesting about the time you were coming up in is it's like a lot of people had you know, had a lot of fear, and it was a lot of hysteria because of the AIDS epidemic. And then also too, it was the crack epidemic going on as well. Like, especially you coming from, Queens and coming from the projects and stuff like that, you had all that going on in the background, and you still,
Yeah.
had that tenacity to go after and find your people, which I commend you for because you could have, you know, like you said, just sunk and, tried to blend in and you know, hid yourself. But instead you fought to be yourself. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from you and the Club Kids story is, and which is a shame that it didn't, not as many people take that from the culture that y'all had, but that y'all really put everything on the line to be yourselves and amidst the chaos, because it wasn't, like the New York it is today, which isn't perfect, but it really wasn't perfect back then. And it really wasn't
No,
no guarantee of anything. There was no safety net for y'all.
all of my people that would have been older than me all died in the AIDS epidemic. All of my older elder gays were not alive. So we were
Mm,
on our own. We were thrust out into the outside world on our own with all kinds of fears of, if we touched one another, we would have AIDS. If we had sex, we'd have AIDS. And all these kind of, negative connotations on, what being gay was, and that we are being punished for being gay. And so we didn't have anyone to look to educate us, to tell us. And maybe that's part of it too. Maybe that's part of like, why we were all so driven to like go out there and find this and look for it, is because we didn't have anybody older than us that was telling us like, and showing us the way, right? And now,
mm,
the young kids are so, they have a luxury of having us, having their older queer generation, that we didn't have that luxury. And it is a luxury because, like I said,
mm,
all of ours died, right? All the kids today have us to look to and see what we did. And that's where the sad part is because of that, they should have more information. They should have more knowledge. They should have more, knowing who people are, and because maybe they just take it for granted because we're here and we made it
mm,
through and we're here to tell them this is what it was like. And so they don't have to fight for anything, which again,
mm,
good for them because I was in my therapy group yesterday, and somebody said something that really resonated with me, and they said either you have this trauma and you repeat it and you want other people to feel just as bad as you felt, or you have this trauma and you go the opposite way. You don't want anyone to ever feel the way that you felt. And that's what I feel like it is. It's like like uh, in one way, I wish the children had this trauma that I went through, because I feel like maybe having to fight for it more makes it taste better, or however you want to put it, as opposed to like just being like, well, this is everywhere. I don't have to worry about it. Who cares?
mm,
So or I don't want anyone to ever feel bad like I had to feel. But
mm,
it made me who I am today. All the
mm,
adversity that I had to fight through made me the strong ass bitch that I am today. So,
mm.
I mean, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change not one part of it. No matter what I went through, I'm in a great place now, and I'm happy to be here. And I don't, I wouldn't wish what I had to go through on people, but I did wish that there was a little bit more hardship that people had to have to fight for, to be themselves, because that's what really pushed me ahead.
Mm. You're a
Makes me
survivor. You really are.
I appreciate that. It makes me just very happy that I have influenced the culture in a way that maybe other people either don't know about or have not experienced. And so to be part of something that's very special to myself, and I hope to other people as well.
I love that. And, this is my last question for you. I mean, you kind of answered it just now, but I was just going to say, like, what is something that you want people to take away from, the Club Kids movement and, you know, from your own words as well? Like, what is something like you want, your legacy and the Club Kids legacy to be, you know?
I think like what stands out to me and what screams to me is like, don't be afraid to be yourself. you
Mm,
know Even though all of this stuff is like, we talked about the commercialization of queerness and the commodification of all this, and everything has become so cookie cutter. Even the gays have become cookie cutter. It's like, don't be afraid to stand out, bitch. Don't be afraid to be the brightest star in the room, you know because being the brightest star in the room is going to be what gets you, the that pushes you ahead, that gives you the attention and the accolade that you need to keep going and keep pushing your art and pushing yourself. Don't fall into being like everybody else. If there's something weird about you, make it weirder. If you got a big
Mm,
nose, make your nose bigger. If you got
mm,
a funny eye, make it more funny. You
mm.
know, you gotta do you. Because how the hell are you gonna do somebody else if you can't do yourself?
Yo, RoRo.
So, I mean, that would be the biggest takeaway I could say from this. We were kids out there, we are all young teenagers, most of us, early teens to mid teens to early 20s. Some were a little bit older, but we were all out there just trying to be ourselves. We weren't out there trying to emulate anybody else. We weren't looking to like, I want to look like this or be like this person. Everything was coming from with every look that I did was me. I wasn't trying to be Michael Alig. I wasn't trying to be Kabuki Starshine. I wasn't trying to be this person or that person. I was wholeheartedly being Rian Starr in every moment because that's what
Mm,
I thought, and I was a star, and
mm-hmm.
the sad part is I didn't know it at the time, and
Mm,
and I and I and had I known it, maybe I would have furthered myself, and had I stuck with constantly pushing it, maybe I would have been where I wanted to be. And so you can't have the maybes, right? You got to have the no regrets, right? So I don't regret anything. I'm glad that I did all the things I did. I'm glad I had the down parts as well as the high parts because the down parts made me fight to stay and made me fight to
mm,
continue to be the artist that I am and to continue to work on myself. Now I'm my own art. My body is my canvas. Myself is my canvas. And I'm constantly evolving myself. I have never stopped and I never will.
mm,
So, you know, uh, that's what pushes me forward now. And so that will be my biggest piece of advice. And what you could take away from this is like, please don't see this as being, that we were drug fueled, crazy people that had no, that were just winging it, right? A lot of us put a lot of thought, effort, inspiration, and a lot of ourselves behind this. So be yourself, be as
mm,
shiny as you fucking want to be, and don't be like everybody else because everybody else got those Tims, everybody else got those Uptowns. Don't mean you got to have the Tims and the Uptowns. All right. Let's bring back the British Knights. You know what I'm saying? Like
Y'all
I
was
just,
calling them uptowns back then too?
oh yeah, those are Uptowns to me. Those are Uptowns. Or we called them Dunks. Dunks are Uptowns.
That's so funny.
It's like don't be afraid to be weird. And even though there's people out there being weird like Lady Gaga, people still don't do it really. People's
Mm,
it's still not everybody. And I love seeing Cardi B on the red carpet. Cardi B's my
mm,
bitch. I love seeing her turn out these looks that never in my days of going to school in an all black neighborhood would I have thought that I would see black chicks wearing outfits like this, and I love it. I think it's
mm,
great. I love the intersectionality between queerness and blackness and colored people now that didn't exist
mm,
before. I find it all to be so much more freeing. And now that you have the ability to be yourself and not be hurt physically for it, not have violence done against you for it, not have people killed or dying of AIDS around you, you have no reason, no excuse whatsoever to not go out there and shine as bright as you fucking want to shine,
mm,
because you deserve it. You deserve it. We
mm.
all deserve we all deserve that light, and we all deserve to be stars, not just Ryan Star. Everybody needs to be a star.
I'm honored that you took the time to just took this much time, especially to speak with me, and be on Raw Club Archives. Thank you so much, for real.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and like, let's stay in touch. Let's talk
Please,
more. I
no.
love, I love. I'm writing my book that'll be out soon, hopefully. The Death of a Disco Dancer.
And
So
how,
look
and
for
one
it.
last thing, how can people find you?
I'm on TikTok. I think I'm under RoRo Morales on TikTok. I'm only on TikTok, so that's where you can find me. That's where you can follow me. I'm starting my own series about the club days and the rave days that I'm going to do my part two on Michael Alig. I was just been sick, so I haven't been able to really do it. And this is all very new to me, also. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to like navigate it myself. And so yeah, and you can catch me cruising the streets of Portland, Oregon. So
Portlandia.
if anybody comes out here, look me up. I'm around. You could find me. I'm always somewhere. So yeah,
Definitely.
I mean that's it. And my book will be out hopefully this year. Death of a Disco Dancer. It's a choose your own adventure life story of mine.
Mm,
You can navigate my life story in like a choose your own adventure style like book. So you can go different ways and different directions.
I love that.
So
Well, we're gonna be
yeah.
looking
So
for it.
all right. And let's keep in touch.
Most definitely.
All right, my friend. You have a good night.
You too.